have the fears and thoughts that are kind of the inside voices. And one of mine has always been, what if I'm not strong enough? What if I'm not strong enough? What if I'm not big enough? What if I haven't done enough? What if I'm not enough? It's the thing that exists inside my head, and it's the insecurity that I have to fight against, because I don't think this is unusual. I think that every founder, every entrepreneur carries some version of this. I think that every human carries some version of this. And I think that the lie that creeps in is that we have to be strong enough in order to start. And if we're strong enough, if we feel strong enough, then we can start. But the problem is that the wait will never end, because there will always be one more thing. It's kind of that idea of when you should be a parent. When I've got it together, when I've got it figured out, when I've got my career and I've got my relationships and I've got all these things figured out, and when I have enough, then I can start. When I'm put together enough, when I'm smart enough, strong enough, then I can do it. That's a good recipe for never having kids, because I have a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old, and I still wonder if I'm prepared. But it raised this question the other day to me, is that what if the path to strength isn't through feeling it first? What if strength doesn't arrive first, but instead that strength is built in doing the things? What if we become strong enough by actually doing it? It gets built inside of the demand itself. As you're building the company, as you're building the idea, as you're building the relationship, as you're being a parent, it's getting built inside of you in a way that you could never have prepared on its own. And what if the worry you're carrying isn't proof that you don't have what it takes? It might be proof that you're paying attention, and that might be the signal that you have what it takes. Because here's my thought. I think that there's this little arc that happens. And I think the arc begins as children. And this pattern continues into adulthood, but it starts when we're children. And that pattern that culminates in strength starts as children in character. So follow along. Character comes first. Small choices, kindness, doing the right thing, even when it costs. And when we have character, the thing that comes out of that is bravery. Now, bravery doesn't mean that you have strength. Bravery means that you are willing to do that thing. It starts in character. Character cultivates bravery. Bravery cultivates strength. So it is the arc that builds us into what we need to be in order to do what we're doing. Because bravery grows out of character. It's not a feeling, it's a recognition that we're capable of doing these hard things. And we're capable because we had character. Again, there's an arc. And I think that there's this thing that I'm in love with here lately. It's the idea that meaningful things have a sequence. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think I'm right. Meaningful things have a sequence. And whenever we pay attention to the sequence, then we are more likely to produce a good outcome. Character, bravery, strength. Bravery grows out of character. Then strength is what compounds over time. It's what you have when the real demands come, because as a child, the risk was pretty low. I had this conversation with my sons. My oldest was really worried about a presentation that he was giving at school. I said, "What are you worried about?" He said, "I'm scared." "What are you scared of?" "What if I look like an idiot?" "Yeah, I get that." "What if I get it wrong?" "Yeah, I get that." And he had all these what ifs. And in the midst of him having all the what ifs, I asked him the question. I said, "Is scared the right word for what you're feeling?" He was like, "Yeah, I'm scared." I said, "Are you going to end up with a scar? If this goes wrong, do you have a scar?" "No." Do you end up with a broken limb? "No." Do you end up Does it physically hurt you? No. What if scared isn't the right word? Because the way my brain is wired, scared has consequences, lasting consequences. I said, what if the right word isn't scared? What if the right word is nervous? Does that change things for you? And I'm not going to tell you that we had this profound, meaningful exchange about it, but I will say this at the end of this conversation, it's like there was some understanding that whenever he walked up there, if it didn't go well, it wasn't the end of the world. So he did it. And in doing it, he developed character. And out of that character was built bravery, so that he realized after he walked up onto the front of that classroom and gave that presentation, that it wasn't the end of the world. And that bravery built confidence that he could do hard things. And as he built that confidence that he could do hard things, what happened inside of him was strength. And it started in this very inconsequential moment that doesn't have lasting impact, except that it is creating a pattern for the future. It's progression. Strength isn't a collision, it's a progression. It starts in something small. Nobody learns to ride a bike without some training wheels, without someone running alongside of them. I've been around parents that will throw their kids in the deep end of the pool to teach them to swim. That's terrifying to me. My son's learned by us climbing into the pool and them exploring and experimenting and seeing that it's not the end of the world if their face got wet. It's not the end of the world to learn to hold their breath and to know when to close their eyes and when to close their mouth and when to hold their nose. All these are character that build bravery, that build strength. Character is the foundation. Bravery is what you discover you're capable of, and strength is what you become. And I want to say this, and this is why I think this matters. It takes someone strong to make something strong, but nobody starts strong. They start by choosing. I start by choosing. When my youngest was 8 years old, he went over and played at his best friend Ben's house. Ben had a little sister that was a year younger than my son. Her name was Evie. Cohen came home and he said, Dad, Evie's got a crush on me. He's 8. I was like, okay, what are you going to do about it? And he looks at me as serious as he could possibly be. And his response was, I guess I'll have to be mean to her. Oh, Lord. So why do you got to be mean to her? He said, if I'm mean to her, she won't like me anymore. Problem solved. Hey, buddy, I'm not sure that's going to give you that's not going to give you the outcome that you want. He was like, well, what do I do? And I said, what do you like Evie? Like as a girlfriend? He was like, no, I don't like her. I don't care about any of that. And I was like, okay, that's fine. You're 8. You don't care about any of that right now. Said, is there a possibility that someday you might? What do you mean? He said, a lot of times people turn into their parents. So tell me about Evie's parents. Of course, I know them. Dan and Megan are good friends of mine, people that I really like. And it was interesting to hear him describe Evie's parents. I said, tell me what they're like. Mr. Dan, he's really funny. He said he always gets out pillows and we have like races down the stairs on the pillows. And he goes out and jumps on the trampoline with us. And did you know they have bees in their backyard? I was like, bees? He was like, yeah, I think it's called an apiary. I was like, big words from an 8-year-old. And he said, he's always really funny. And he plays the drums. I was like, so he's a great guy. He was like, yeah, he's awesome. Like, what about Evie's mom? Yeah, Miss Megan's great too. She always smells really good. She's tall. She's really pretty. And she makes really great chocolate chip cookies. And he just said all the nice things about Megan and all the nice things about Dan. And it's just a delightful conversation. I said, So they're really delightful people. And that means that Evie might turn into something like them. And there might be a day that you wish that Evie would notice you. It might be when she's 12. It might be when she's 18. It might be when she's 24. There might be a day that you look at Evie and you're like, I didn't like her at 8, but good now. And I said, because that future is possible, because that is a possible outcome, now can you treat her well so that you don't disqualify yourself later? And he was like, what do you mean? Well, what I mean is if she's 16 and you like her and she looks at you and she remembers the 8-year-old version of you that was a jerk, you lost your shot. So be good to her now because it will affect later. Those are the things. Those are the through lines. And some of you might be listening to that and you're like, you're just trying to figure out how to manipulate her later. No, we're not. The goal isn't to work the system. The goal is for him as an 8-year-old to start to connect behavior and consequences. If you do this thing here, it cultivates this thing that might happen later. In that moment, I didn't tell him to be brave. It wasn't even about character. It was about the small window that he could understand that connected the dots to what he was learning and establishing in his life. That's how character gets built. Through those small windows, through those small choices. Made for the right reason, even when the easier path was right there. Character leads to bravery, leads to strength. Talked about my kids a bunch. I have been a single dad since the boys were very young. And if you had asked me in the beginning if I was capable of being a single dad, I would have laughed at you. Because how in the world do you pull that off? How in the world do you do that? And how in the world you do that is you have no idea. You just do it. If you'd asked me, I would have said that I couldn't do it, that I wasn't capable of it. But I can tell you that 7 months into being a single dad, 7 months into being this thing with my kids, I woke up and realized that we were doing it. I wasn't thinking about bravery. I was just thinking about surviving. I was overwhelmed, had a million feelings. None of them felt like strength. None of them felt like bravery. None of them felt like character. None of them felt like anything but survival. But one morning I woke up and I realized I'm doing it. There's the magic. And I didn't celebrate it as a victory. I didn't get a badge and stick it on my shirt. I didn't get myself a ribbon and have an award ceremony. I just realized it. And I realized that showing up, the character things were cultivating bravery and the bravery was cultivating strength. And what I had to do was the small things that all contributed to the bigger things. And the sequence mattered. And I could only see it clearly in hindsight. So I want to say this. You may not feel brave. You may not believe that you're strong enough. You don't have to. You don't have to believe it. Start here. Recognize what brave people do and then choose to do that thing. This is what brave people do and do that thing. Even though you don't feel brave, even though you feel scared, even though you feel uncertain, and even though you feel incapable, even though you feel inadequate, even while doubting yourself. Because the truth is, I have a hard time believing the best about myself. I can believe it for others, but for myself, that's always been harder. So I've had to learn to do it differently. I don't tell myself I'm brave. I look at what brave people do and I try to do that. And over time, the choosing hopefully becomes what I am. I need to say that again. Over time, the choosing hopefully becomes what I am. So remember this little simple piece. You're not waiting to feel it. You're not pretending you already have it. You're choosing what brave looks like. Because I don't know if I'm brave. I know what brave looks like. And I'm going to choose it because character builds bravery. Bravery builds strength. And strength is what lets you build anything that actually matters. I'm going to have to listen back to this myself, because this is where I say it messy before anyone might assume that it was tidy all along. Thanks for being here.